Welcome to The House Therapy, the podcast that helps you to create a home that you love to live in. I'm Nina Dwaron, owner and lead designer at ISO Design and Interiors. And each week, we're going to explore practical ways to help bring more beauty, function, and flow into your space. From design and staging to organizing, downsizing, and everything in between. If you want a home that truly supports your life and your family, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Hi, welcome back to the House Therapy Podcast. Today, I want to focus on some information and some data about what's happening in the real estate market today. And if you are a buyer, this episode's really good for you, but if you are a seller or thinking of selling your home in this market, this episode is going to be packed full of information that you're going to want to know. Okay, so keep watching on, and if you like the episode and you like what you're hearing, please make sure you give us a thumbs up, like, share, and subscribe. Okay, that'll help us to grow the show and reach more people just like you who are needing this kind of information, this kind of, honest and insightful information. Okay, so if you don't know about the Toronto Real Estate or TRREB Market Watch Report, I highly recommend that you look that up and take a look at, what the people who are like in the real estate business are talking about, what they're sharing, what their predictions are about where the market is going, and more importantly, there's a lot of great data for you to look at and to assess to see if this is the right market for you to sell. All right, so let's. I'm going to share the report right now. And then we're gonna read them together, and I'm gonna share some of my commentaries with you. All right. Okay. So this is the TRREB Market Watch Report. As I mentioned, it speaks about the GTA market, but there are stats and data throughout Southern Ontario as well. So I'm going to share with you a little bit later on. Okay. So this report was released on April the 7th, and it covers the month of March of 2026, okay? The Greater Toronto Area resale housing market conditions tightened in March in comparison to the same time last year. Sales were up year over year. That's good to hear, right? That's what we want to know, especially if you are a seller. You want to know that homes are actually moving. So I'm glad to see this too. While new listings were down, now that is interesting because we are in fact in the spring market, which typically starts around the end of February. So to see that listing is down, meaning, people who are not serious about selling are kind of staying off the market, which is a good thing. You don't want more listing. That's going to saturate the market, meaning there's going to be even more choices for buyers, okay? So selling prices were lower compared to 2025, which then helps with the affordability as buyers enter the spring market, right? So if you are a buyer, this is a really good time to buy, all right? It's encouraging to see an uptick in March home sales compared to the previous month and the previous year. This suggests that an increasing number of GTA households are looking to take advantage of improved affordability. That's good to hear. And as we move into the spring market, the positive news is that on trade and geopolitical issues, it will help to improve the consumer confidence and home sales in the months ahead. And it's true, there's so much going on in the world right now. There's so much uncertainty. It's no wonder that our consumer confidence is down and it's poor because, who wants to make a major investment like a home when there's so much uncertainty and, things are fluctuating every day. So I totally get it, right? But as things do improve, and they will, there's a saying that goes, when there's winter, spring always follows, right? Market condition changes, and there's been, tons of data through the decades that shows that, when we're down, we're not always going to be down forever. So that's nice to hear and to know, right? Now, the president, Danielle Steinfeld, also says that buyers continue to benefit from substantial negotiating power. Absolutely true. The more listings there are, the more purchasing power and negotiating power buyers are going to have, because they have so many choices, right? And if you are in need of selling and desperate to sell, definitely, you need to keep that in mind as well. This explains why benchmark and average selling prices were down year over year. However, if the market condition continues to tighten as they did in March, selling prices could start to level off as we move through the remainder of 2026. This is according to the Chief Information Officer, Jason Mercer at TRREB. So that is also important to know. If you are a buyer, and if you can afford to buy now is the time to buy, because prices will level off. If you're one of those people who are sitting back and thinking that price will continue to drop lower and lower, you may be surprised by it when you are then ready to jump into the buying pool, that prices will then have gone up. Okay, and there's some other indicators here that I want to share towards the end of the report as well. The GTA reported over 5,000 homes were sold in the system in March, with an increase of 1.7% compared to March of 2025. So there were 1.7% more homes sold in March 26 versus March 2025. And new listings entered into the MLS listing accounted for about 14, almost 14,500 listings came into the market in March. Surprisingly, this is down by almost 17% compared to the previous year. Having said that, though, there's still a lot, that's still a lot of listings, right? On a seasonally adjusted basis, March 2026 home sales and new listings were up month over month compared to February of 2026. From my discussions with my realtor partners and realtors in general, they did tell me that the spring market this year is a little bit delayed. Usually the spring market kind of takes off around middle of February, but this year it's a little bit delayed, not only about all the geopolitical issues, economic issues, but the weather this year didn't help either. All right, so that caused a bit of a delay month compared to last year and compared to February as well. However, sales were up slightly rather than new listings. Okay. And what else does it say here? So the consumer price index composite benchmark was down by 7.4% year over year in March 2026. And the average selling price was just over 1 million. And that is 6.7% down compared to 2025. So if you were ready to buy in March of 25 and you waited, you benefit from this this downward listing price. Okay. Now, on a month over month seasonally adjusted basis, selling price remained relatively flat, with the HPI composite edging down and the average selling prices edging up compared to February 26. So that means that, compared to 2026, prices are inching up a little bit. So that's why I'm saying, if you are in the market to buy now is a really good time to buy, because, prices are flattening out. So as a summary here, the GTA housing supply pipeline is in danger of running dry in the medium to long term. This is an interesting line to say. What I think they're trying to say here is that it's more related to new construction than resale properties, because it follows with the federal and provincial government announcements on HST and development charges relief were important affordability policy initiatives designed to spur new home sales and new construction homes, which are really feeling the pinch and the challenge right now, as people have more negotiating power with resale homes. However, it is important to ensure that the right types of homes are being built, namely the missing middle home types, which bridge the gap between condos and traditional single family home. This is why we're seeing a lot of townhomes being built, semi-detached even, because there are less property and the prices can be more affordable than single detached family homes. And so that is it for this part. Now I want to quickly talk about this data set here. So this is for March of 2026, and they're talking about unit sales versus average sale prices in the 416 and the 905 area code, okay? So, and it covers detached, semi-detached townhomes as well as condos. And as you can see here, 905, the 905 area did really well in March. More homes were sold in that area. Across all the different type of housing types. But it's also nice to see that more condos were being sold in the 416 area, because I know that condos in the Toronto area were really being challenged in the recent months and in the past year. So it's nice to see that things are moving. And then you can see the average prices here. And so you can expect that obviously the 416 area code, the Toronto area prices are going to be higher than further north, which is the 905 area code. But it's also important to take a look at some of this change, right? So as you can see here, like across the different housing types, you can see the number of sales increase across both 416 and the 905 area code, with some of exceptions like the 416, the semi-detached were down, and townhouses and condos were down in the 905 area code, because when people move to the 905 area code, they want this, the single detached or the semi-detached. So you can see that those types of home fared better in March. Now let's take a look at pricing though, right? As you can see here, pricing in March compared to March of 2025, because it is year over year change, all property types were down, right? So this is good for buyers. So again, if you're a buyer and you're looking to buy, now is the time to buy, because as TRREB mentioned, price is starting to level off, flattening, all right? As more buyers, pent-up demand comes into play, and listings are lower, as you can see, so that is going to cause a bump in price at some point. Okay, I want to also go through this chart with you, because I really like this chart because it tells you a lot, right? So it has data across all the major regions: Halton region, Peel region, the city of Toronto, York region, Durham, Dufferin County, as well as Simcoe County, all right? And what you see is, how many listings are active in those areas, dollar volume worth, the average prices, the median prices, number of new listings that are coming in. So this is where you see the 14,000. I don't know what this SNLR trend is. I'll have to look that up. Active listings, so how many active listings there are. So that's kind of like the new listings and the existing listings, and then the number of months of inventory. So this is very important, this column here. So for a balanced market, there should be about 3 months of inventory. And right now across all markets, on the average, we have 4.9 months of inventory. But if you take a look a little bit closer, so let's just say if you look at King, which is in York region, they have 12 months of inventory. That's massive. And then if you take a look at in Simcoe, I can never pronounce the city. I'm going to attempt it anyway, but I might butcher it. Agila Torrencito, they have almost 11 months of inventory. So that's a huge number of listings in that area, which means, you know, a lot of choices for buyers, which means that their negotiating power improves because, you know, people who are desperate to sell in those areas or want to make a move on it. Okay, so the other two important, okay, so this is selling price versus listing price. So this is where you're going to see, you know, in Toronto East, prices are still doing really well. You know, the average is at 102% over asking. That's pretty good. Versus listing price, that is. All right, so these other two columns here, LDOM and PDOM. LDOM is listing days on market and PDOM is property days on market. So what does that mean? What are the differences in the two? Listing days on market means that how long the property was listed on average across these areas before it was sold, okay? Property days on market is how long the listing actually lasted. So as you know, when things don't sell, your realtor might take the listing down, adjust the price, and then put it up as a new listing. So this number is new. I don't remember how new it is, maybe a couple of years. But before they only list the listing days on market, which is from the time that your property goes on the MLS and from the time that property is sold. But it doesn't take into account how many times the properties were taken off the market and relisted before it finally sold. So this is what the property days on market means. So as you can see, let's just say like all of TRREB, the listing days on market was 31 days, but the average PDOM was 47 days, all right? So that means that these properties were taken down and then relisted. I hope that makes sense. Okay, so that's kind of what I wanted to share with you, some of these datas, depending on when you are. I highly recommend that you just look at the report and, you know, educate yourself so that you don't make the wrong decisions and think that if you're listing your house, you want the prices that you want from 2 or 3 years ago. That's not realistic because we're in a very different market than we were, you know, during the pandemic years, right? So the TRREB Market Watch Report is available to everyone. It is free. You just have to type in TRREB Market Watch Report and you can take a look at all the historical data and the most current month's data as well, okay? But as I promised earlier, I want to focus in on giving you some tips and some helpful information if you are thinking of entering the market right now. But having said that, I also want to caution you. If you are not really serious about selling and you're just kind of testing out the water, this market is not going to be for you because it's going to cause you a lot of frustration. And it won't be the realtor's fault. I assure you, they're doing their best in this very challenging market. And so my only advice, if you are serious about selling in this market, is to listen to your realtors because they are doing the work behind the scene to do the comparables for you, to show you what's moving, what's not moving, what the realistic price or market price is right now. But if you set your goals too high, you're not even gonna get a showing, right? People are just gonna pass you by because guess what? There's gonna be so many other listings available that they can go look at without, you know, they don't want to deal with all this, crazy negotiation back and forth at this point. They don't have to, at this time during this market. All right, so I want to share with you a little bit about, if you are planning to sell, what you should be doing. Okay, and to do that, you need to put yourself in the buyer's shoes. All right, because when we're selling something, it's not about us anymore. All right, it's about how can we position something to resonate with the buyer in order to get them to have greater interest in your property and want to buy your property. So it's about them and not about you. All right, so I want to go through, I want to give you 5 things to think about and to chew over. All right, so first thing is that buyers are looking for move-in ready condition homes. All right, so right now, even though prices have dropped, there's a greater number of listings out there, their home prices are still very high, like very, very high. It has come down a little bit, but not enough. Like we're not at the pricing from 10 years ago. Nothing like that by any means, right? And so people who can afford to buy a home today, they are pretty much spending all of their savings and sometimes dipping into the bank of mom and dad and dipping into the bank of grandparents, right? So they don't have a lot of extra money after all the closing costs and things like that. So they want as move-in ready a home as possible. So the more you can do to your home to make it move-in ready, the better position you are going to be in relative to your competition. All right. Value alignment versus, which is price versus your condition of the home versus the competition, right? So this is where you need to be aware that you need to price your house at market value. Gone are the days where you can just price your house at anything and it'll sell. Like, during the pandemic year, prices soared like crazy because there was such a high demand for homes, especially single detached homes, where people were stuck in their homes during the pandemic, so they wanted more space, right? So, back then you can almost ask for virtually any price and people were willing. But the market has shifted like literally 180 degrees and you no longer can do that. So if you are going to say, you want to test the market, I'm going to, price it slightly above market value. The thing is, it's likely going to cost you more in the long run than you think because then you're going to have to make the first price adjustment, maybe even the second, maybe even the third, right? And the reason being, the longer your house sits on the market, the more stale it's going to become. Then it's going to cause people to think, what's wrong with this house? Why is it not moving? What am I not seeing? Is it too good to be true? Things like that, right? And in this market, making an emotional connection with your buyers, with the home, is so important, all right? So, buyers now have more time to reflect on their purchases. They have more time to make comparison with all the homes that they're going to see. So the more that you can do to help your buyers to immediately connect with the home, the better it's going to perform, the better the outcome of your sale is going to be. And this really, it might sound like I'm pitching staging because I am a professional stager, but here's the thing. Staging is marketing, all right? Like it's so important for you to think that it's all about marketing. When you're selling a home, it is a product. It's a much bigger bread box, but it is still a product. And you still have to think about the 4 P's of marketing: positioning, pricing, promotion, and things like that. And so, the more that you can do to market to the target buyer, to help them to emotionally connect to the space, and package your home to sell, the better it's going to perform. And obviously, if you're serious about selling, this is really important to take note of, okay? And then the other thing is that buyers are also looking for functionality as well as livability, right? So if you have way too much stuff in the home, let's say, and it looks cluttered, and buyer can't see past the clutter because all they see is your stuff and not the space, then all they're thinking about is that there's not enough space in this home. Even if the home is super spacious and has a lot of storage, it just gives off the impression that there's not enough storage, and it's therefore makes the home not livable. So, the idea here is to declutter, remove a lot of the stuff that just is going to create noise in the home and take away from the buyer's ability to see the possibilities of the home and the actual functionality of the home, okay? Now, the other thing that you need to be aware of when dealing with buyers today is that you need to show them transparency and help them to feel confident in their purchase decision, okay? So, right now, buyers are much more risk aware. They are not going to, put in a proposal or an offer with no conditions, because there's risk in no condition offers. Way back when, during the pandemic, there was just so much competition that people were putting a lot of offers in without condition, and then they kind of regret it after. That is completely gone now. There are all sorts of conditions now when it comes to the sale, so you have to really be aware of that and be transparent in order with the home. And the more confidence that you can give the buyers about their purchasing decision, if there are some areas that you need to be transparent about, like the age of the windows, the age of the roofs and stuff like that. If you can't fix it now, you just need to be transparent about that. You can't cover these things up, and then you need to understand that buyers potentially could be asking for pricing concession, because they will then have to take care of those things that you were not able to because you had to get on the market, okay? So that is what it's important for you to understand as sellers, what buyers are looking for. So having said this though, if you are paying attention to what buyers are looking for, then here are some things that I want to share with you as sellers, what you should be prioritizing, okay, when it comes to preparing your house to sell and to get it ready. So one of the top things that people say right now is that the presentation of your home is no longer optional, okay? So because so many people view properties online first before they even take that next step to go and register and want to see your property or your home in person, they are looking at online, all right? So if your home doesn't capture their attention online immediately, they're not going to come and book the showing, because they're just going to move on to the next listing, which there are obviously so many of, right? So you have to make sure that the house shows well online first and foremost, all right, before anything else. And when you package and market the house well, that really resonates with buyers. And here's the thing, right? We all buy with our eyes first, whether it's food or car or trips, right? We want to see those photos, right? The food that is shown online or the menu looks amazing. The car is so shiny and pretty in the photos, and it's like photography is everything when it comes to selling. And that is no different than when you're selling a house. In fact, I think it's more important, because the price tag of a house is so much more than any of the other examples that I've shared, okay? The other thing I want you to focus on is high impact updates. I don't mean that you need to do a full on renovation. Hey, if you can, good on you, because that will help you really well in this type of market, because people want the best. People want the most value for the price that they're going to pay for the home, right? But I'm not saying that you have to do that, but focus on the high impact upgrades, right? So, some visual things like painting out your kitchen cabinets and bathroom vanity and cabinets and things like that, changing out the hardware, changing out the lighting, a fresh coat of paint. It's not a lot of money that, necessarily, but these little types of upgrades is gonna, go so much further when buyers are looking at listing online and they see a house that hasn't been upgraded in 20, 30 years versus yours that has made some good high impact upgrade. They're gonna likely want to see and buy that more over the other one, okay? The other one, I know I feel like I'm beating a dead horse on the head, but like, price for today's market, please, I implore you to listen to your realtors, okay? You've hired them to do a job, right? If you go in with a certain price in mind already, you're thinking about years ago what prices were, because then you're just wasting a lot of your effort, because you still, even if you don't stage, even if you don't do any major upgrades or minor upgrades, you're still going to be putting a lot of effort into preparing for the listing, all right? Like decluttering and things like that, cleaning up and whatnot. So you're just wasting your time and your realtor's time, right? If you are serious about selling, price for today's market, listen to what they have to share with you. Listen to the comparables that they're going to share with you about homes that are being sold in the area. And listen, not all homes are the same, right? Two neighboring homes, similar size, similarly laid out, can have two very different prices, because one home hasn't been updated in 30 years and the other one was recently updated. So just don't think that all homes, all properties are the same, because they're not. You really have to take a look at the features of the home as well, because then that will dictate what the price is. But, again, my number one advice here is listen to the realtor and do your own research. Look at Market Watch to see what homes are selling like in your area, because then it'll help you make an informed decision, and don't make you feel like your realtor is sandbagging or lowballing your pricing, okay? Because that's definitely not the case, all right? Now, the other one is to create a lifestyle and not just the listing, okay? So this is where really staging, styling, and design and thoughtful marketing comes in, all right? Because we want to, part of my job is always to make sure that the minute the potential buyers drive to your house, they can see right from the curb all the way to the inside that the house is beautifully maintained. It helps them to visualize how they're going to live in the space. And this is so important when there's wonky layouts in the property, because, our job is to make sure we remove that from the listing, because we make sure that buyers understand the flow of the home and the functionality of the home, okay? So really, this is where you need to understand the importance about marketing, okay? Because marketing is what helps to bring in eyeballs, all right, to your property. And that's exactly what you want. But the important thing here is that, yes, you see in this market, virtual staging is being used a lot because it's more affordable than actual staging. However, just think, right? if you were able to capture the buyer online because the photos, virtual staging photos were beautiful, what happens when they come to your home and it is not what they saw online? Disappointment is what they will get, all right? So you want to make sure you tie it in, make sure that buyers see exactly what they saw online. They fell in love with the property online. Make sure they fall in love with the property when they see it in person, because pictures is great. However, it doesn't give you depth. It doesn't give you a sense of space until you walk through the doors, okay? And the difference when you see a property in person is so much better when it's properly staged, all right? And the last thing I want to share with you is reduce buyer friction, literally everywhere, you know? You want to make it easy for buyers to say yes. So what does this mean? It means don't put so many restrictions on when you're doing showings, okay? Like no restriction like, you know, they can only show properties, your property during this day or this time, etc. Just make it as easy for them to come and see the property whenever it is convenient for them, all right? The more eyeballs you're going to get on the property, the easier it is going to be for them to say yes to your property, okay? Eliminate any crazy restriction, like, you know, they can't look at this room or they can't go into this space, it'll be locked up. No. Listen, they're buying the whole home. They need to be able to see the whole home, all right? So that is kind of the last tip that I want to share. I hope that this episode was informative for you. I hope that it resonated with you, both as seller and even both as buyers too, because this is a great market to buy if you are ready to do so. But as sellers, make sure that you follow these tips. And if you have any more questions, hey, listen, my contact information is going to be in the show notes. Feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to answer questions for you and provide you with some customized guidance for you and your property as well. All right. So until the next episode, I hope to see you again. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. And I would love to hear some of your comments as well. Okay. So until next time, remember, if you take care of your home, it'll take care of you. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to the House Therapy Podcast. If today's episode inspired you, be sure to follow the show and share it with someone who would love it too. For more tips, resources, or to work with me directly, visit isodesign.ca. Until next time, remember, with a little effort, every home can be beautiful and every space can be functional. And remember, you deserve it.